What's up? I'm Brytwing.
AndyK, good to see everybody. No audio. Oh my god.
Uh-oh.
Is this 170 people watching, by the way?
A lot of people.
A classic. This is just an official GA stream at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Classic AndyK blunder.
Why did I get called? It's like, Jesus, what the? I got short hair. There's
Audio's
nothing here.
back. Why isn't it? Oh, is everyone else here?
Oh, everyone but once.
Hey, it looks like we got it.
I think you're back. I don't want to look like Jesus. Stop it. What the?
Can you guys hear once?
The Swift hoodie.
Can you hear me now? Does that work?
I am free. I am free.
Huh, that's really weird. I don't know why it's not giving me audio.
The good news is no matter what, at midnight we're spoiling some cards.
True. You guys can hear me now? Oh, okay, cool. Okay, that's weird. I guess my audio sourcing is broken. Oh yeah, it's only left here. Let me fix that. My bad. I forgot to downmix to mono. That's my bad. Okay. Fixed. All right. Well, we'll try that again.
So you want to go? You want me to go?
I got this. Surely I can't mess it up twice, right?
Redemption round.
Surely. Hello and welcome, guys, to the Serene Balance Production Podcast. We are bringing you today Exia spoilers, HVN Exia spoilers. You saw our thumbnail, you saw the cutest of things, but what you haven't seen is these two handsome fellow above me. Hello, would you guys like to introduce yourself, starting with Mr. Brytwing?
I am Brytwing. Super happy to be here.
Hello, I'm AndyK. I run the Yeti Gaming webcam server for North America. So if you want to play some great archive webcam games, we do it just about every week.
Yeah, if you guys want to, you can always check out the link in the description below. We have the Yeti webcam server as well as Brytwing is actually ATO for that. So the three of us do a lot of work for Yeti here. We kind of make things work on the Serene Balance production side. But yes, so before we get into our spoilers, we'll be getting into these in about 25 minutes here. We've been asked by the Overlord, God, King, Overseer himself, Mr. Silidar, to rate the existing spoilers.
Yeah, so we're just going to go through each and every one of them and just kind of talk about how we feel about them, give them a rating, how good we think they're going to be for this next upcoming meta. And, we're missing a good amount of spoilers so far. So, there might be cards that come are revealed, or maybe we think cards are going to reveal that could impact these, but we're just going to do a way too early set review.
Pretty much.
It's a heavy task, but I think we're up for it.
Yeah, so if you're watching this later on down the road, please don't flame us for being like, oh my god, how did you think that card was bad? Well, we didn't know about all the other cards that worked with it. So without further ado, we will be using sylvie.gg to check the spoilers that are currently existing. So big shout out to Crothis for that. It'll be up now. So what do you guys want to rate them by?
Out of 5 stars, I think.
5 stars? I think that's pretty fair.
Overall?
The rating could change per card.
Yeah. No, we'll see how. Maybe we give like crocodiles or something, but
yeah.
Let's do like 10 art. Out of 5 out of 5, or out of 5 for art. How good we think the card is. 2 simple ratings.
Yeah, that
sounds good.
I think the card on the left is pretty good.
Frostnip might be one of the best cards in the set. I'm really excited to see 2 cost negate really get revealed.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good one. Probably used in a lot of water decks.
I really like the art on it. Yeah. I think it's very Merlin-esque without it being Merlin,
I'm excited for the Sapphire Pack promo, the Sapphire Pack foil on it.
I think it's really pretty frostbinding for sure.
True.
Do we know the character that's on it?
I don't know, but it looks like Lunette went to Sango.
It kind of looks like Lunette.
it just looks like another Lunette art. Man, I give that a 5. I think the art's fantastic.
Let's get into the real stuff. Let's start with how do you pronounce it? Diao Chan?
Diao Chan.
I'm gonna let you pronounce all the names.
Okay,
I'm gonna
okay.
look really, really white doing it.
It sounds good. Rate them on a scale of feet to no feet. That's a good one, Mitch. It's a good one.
The level 2 is definitely feet.
Yeah, we'll start with level 1. So Diao Chan Enchantress. On enter, put 2 glimmer counters on Diao Chan. Inherited effect, rest. Activate a reaction spell card from your memory. Pay its reserve cost only by removing that many glimmer counters from Diao Chan. Activate this ability only during an opponent's turn.
I think this is a really good effect. I think this will, be very helpful for control strategies, but I think it also will make a nice little level 1 specifically deck where you don't necessarily go past this into a level 2, but you can play that really like basically allies, but water allies with negate on your opponent's turn, able to activate those cards from memory. I think this is a really good card.
Yeah, I love the card. I think Grand Archive, one of the things it's been lacking a little bit is a true control archetype outside of like Water Luxum. I feel a lot of it's been like more mid-rangey or more combo-y, but this is more like a traditional counterspell control deck that I feel the game's been lacking so far, that I'm really, really excited for. Being able to enable playing your counterspells your negates out of your memory is just incredible. It's basically card advantage built into it.
Yeah, the effect overall with Diao Chan level 1, I think puts her in contention for one of the best, if not the best, level 1 champion in the game. We have on the worst end, Diana level 1, has literally a useless effect until you level up. And then this one gives us a lot of like unique counterplay, right? It changes the way you can play the game, but it also gives you that pseudo +1 influence like you're talking about. I think this card's 5 out of 5. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's 5 out of 5.
Looking
you are
into
legally allowed to say you've activated my trap card every time you activate her.
Just not on stream.
Yeah, you're right.
As a caster. Yeah, as long as you're not a caster, it's good. Looking at our level 2, we have Diao Chan Dreaming Wish. This is a Diao Chan lineage, so you do need to follow lineage requirements. Inherited effect is at the beginning of your end phase. If the amount of glimmer counters on Diao Chan is less than the amount of Phantasias that you control, put an amount of glimmer counters on Diao Chan equal to the difference. Well, I feel like Andy's brain is thinking right now.
It's just really exciting to me because one, I think this is the first champion we've seen with 2 inherited effects. And just the ability to constantly refresh your glimmer counters very easily. I could see this deck being just +1s, fractals, and counters and negates. Just pure control. And I am a control player through and through in almost like everything I play. And this has got me so excited. I cannot see straight. I'm really excited to see how much like level 3 stuff I want to put in the deck because we're going to get to there in a sec. But lots of cool Terra cards. And I mean, I want to give this card a 5-star out of 5 stars too.
Yeah, I would agree. This card's super good. Well, it goes well with the level 1 ability as well. Obviously being able to refresh those glimmer counters is just super good. Never going to be able to run out of that. That's even 1 fractal lets you cast 3 cost cards, which is like pretty much most cards in the game. 2 and 3 cost is what you're looking for. I just think it's super good. So 5 out of 5 for me as well.
When we look at cards like Dreaming Wish here, it makes me think of people talking about Lorraine level 2 Blade Master, where on kill you draw a card, right? So you gain 1 influence from that. Diao Chan Dreaming Wish has an inherited effect. It continually accrues you value in the game, which is kind of crazy because when you play a fractal, if you play, I guess, a fractal Fantasia, generally it has reservable, and if it has reservable, it means it goes neutral, right? On top of this, you're also gaining glimmer counters, so you're kind of gaining more, like accruing more value than you would in most decks with this, which is why I think this might also be the best level 2 of the game, or very close.
Yeah, and I think just because of the nature of Grand Archive, where every ally can attack immediately when you play it, I think control archetypes need to feel overpowered in a vacuum to be completely successful.
Ooh, so I've been informed. Luxera's map just dropped their spoilers, which Andy and I are also part of Luxera's map. So quick interlude to live react potentially here.
Ooh, all right.
Abyssal Heaven spoilers. Okay. Okay,
Oh,
spicy
wow.
spoilers. So we have an Exia spoiler in
Okay.
here. So this kind of like goes along with our stream anyways, right? So we have Zhang Liao, the Bloodmonger, the unique ally, Cleric Warrior Human. This is a 3-cost Exia card. It has Taunt. On enter, you may recover 3. And the class bonus for Warrior Cleric is at the beginning of your Recollection phase. If your champion has 0 damage counters on them, deal 20 unpreventable damage to your champion and draw 3 cards.
That's wild.
And it's a 2/4. That's interesting.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, anyone want to go with their initial thoughts before I do?
Go for it.
So my initial thoughts is whenever I see a card like this that is a advanced element ally, I think it needs to be incredibly powerful in order to see play. 2/4 taunt for 3, whatever. On enter, you may recover 3. It's fine. I think its beginning of Recollection is too situational because if you're an opponent and you see this coming, right? You're going to just try to deal damage to the opposing champion. And this needs to trigger at the beginning of your Recollection phase, so the odds you actually get to draw those 3 cards, I feel, is very, very low. Because not only do you need to do it, do you need to have no damage, but the Bloodmonger needs to survive an entire turn.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the trick, because Jin, which I assume this would be used in, has the immortality, so it doesn't matter if he like dies or whatever. I guess that's just yeah. So you can get the draw 3 pretty well, but it's the making that live. The taunt is actually kind of making it worse because you can't protect it with anything else. It's just kind of sticking out there.
Yeah, having to have 0 damage counters on your champion is tough.
I think
Yeah,
conceptually
definitely.
this card is like, if they know you're playing Jin Undying Resolve, you could maybe try to cheese them with this, in the sense of like they're not going to push you because they know they can't reach a certain point. So you can Zhang Liao yourself and then play Crimson Prescience on her or something, or like a Resolute Stand. Overall, I don't think it's going to see that much play. But
Maybe
man,
use this with Seize Fate, get yourself down to 0 that way. But then I get Seize Fate kills you, so I have no idea. It's very situational for sure.
It's really, really difficult to set this up.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. I think this might end up being a bulk SR, though. But, of course, there are more cards in the set that need to be spoiled. So I could absolutely just be eating my words on that one.
Honestly, I do think that a 3-cost 2/4 is not bad. 3-cost 2/4 with taunt and you recover 3 is actually like, it's reasonable enough that you could play this, resolve it with like an Exia Sight or something, and then protect yourself for another turn. It doesn't advance the gameplay that much. It's like a stall card.
Yeah, I think what's intent is like there might be strategies that evolve to, if Jin gets really good, to beat Jin by just not doing any damage to him until like all in one burst. And this allows you to counteract those strategies a bit by forcing yourself to take 20 damage really fast and get card advantage. So it's possible like this ends up being a sideboard card if Jin gets like really, really good and other like control variants get really, really good, but we'll see.
The second card I think is kind of crazy. I guess we should give it its rating. Art wise, I give it like a 4. She's a very pretty lady with really nice thighs. Card wise, I'm gonna give it like a 2. Maybe a 1.
I could see it as a 1.
Yeah, I'm for me, what a 2 is a card that you would probably end up playing in your sideboard situationally. So I'm gonna give it a 2.
If this card didn't say if your champion has 0 damage counters, deal 20. If it just said deal 20 unpreventable damage, this card would be crazy. I think in that archetype.
100%, it would be insane.
Even if it said if your champion has less than 10, maybe it would still be really good. But I think having it so specific to 0 is really hard.
Yeah.
Because like this is what, Water Gen only, you play Revitalize and Cleanse and try to like heal yourself down so that you can utilize this.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if there's just enough healing, but I'm gonna give it I'm gonna stick with my 2. I'm gonna stick with my hard 2.
Okay. I like the second card. I think
second card seems super good. Yeah. It's on enter a banish fire elemental a card from your graveyard if you do summon a Direwolf token, and then at level 2, other wolves you get +1. I think this card
Direwolf
is
token's at
super good.
2/1.
Yeah, Direwolf token is a
2/1, yeah.
2/1 beast with no pride, and it dies at the end of the turn.
Yeah, so I think this could be like a really good push card. I mean, it's kind of pseudo Banner Knight just for your wolves. You know, pair this with the card that summons 2 of them. I think this could be very good.
Yeah, I like the direction they're pushing this set. Like, people will see as we review the rest of the set. Moving towards like fire aggro Sylvie being more of a deck.
Alan as well.
Yeah,
Alan's actually like a fairly good option in these situations too.
But I think this card is fairly strong. If that archetype comes to fruition, at least, I think this card is very, very strong.
Just a base 3-cost 2/3. The only problem is it has pride, so it like really is archetype based. But it makes me wonder if cards like Flamelash Subduer will become a little bit more prevalent. Also things like the Wind version Menagerie Beastmaster. Where you get a +1 level if you as long as you control a beast or an animal. Direwolf Alpha is probably a 4 for me. I think it's a really good card. If that archetype becomes popular, this card would be like an absolute need.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 3 for now, but I think that if this archetype becomes a thing, it could easily be a 5, like the pinnacle of a deck kind of thing. So 3 for now, just with what we've seen, but easily could be moving up.
I'm also going to give it a 3 because I think it's on enter requiring you to banish a fire from your graveyard might be more restrictive than I'm giving it credit for. So I'm just going to give it a 3 for now.
Flamelash Beastmaster. This gets a 5 because it has a panda. Pandas are just a 5 out of 5.
Because it was an art spoiler for A and B, I think at Worlds or wherever, one of the sets that they leaked it from. But then the card never showed up, and everyone was like, "Wait, where this goes?" Mostly just D, just as nice saying, "Hey, hang on, where's the panda?" It's finally here.
We've seen this art for a while, but I think this card is very interesting.
Hunter's good. 2-cost 1/2, gain 3 on a beast is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's the problem it keeps having with all this beast stuff is it feels like you need to be like, if it's aggro, you need to be level 2 in order for anything to happen, which I think is fine. Or you need to like gain a level somehow, which I think is fine. Because I think some of these cards might end up just being like way too strong if you play them on 1 or even 0. But Flamelash Beastmaster is essentially 4 damage for 2.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's like a class bonus for card cards, so it's like, I don't know, prepared planned explosives or like conceptually to me, I'm trying to compare it to other like Fire Xander related things or like burn deck stuff.
Yeah. I think this card's I'm going to give it a 3 as well as I gave Direwolf Alpha, where I think if Beast, Fire, Alan becomes really, really good, I think this deck is great.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2 just because I think that beast keyword can be super restrictive. Sometimes it feels like you just never have the beast on when you need him. But I feel like it could be pretty good depending on what the deck starts to look like.
There's no beast with a pride 1, right?
Don't believe
it's like it's 0 or 2+.
And the zeros are like basically non-Sylvie cards, I believe.
It's Crawl and Majestic Spirit.
Crawl, Majestic Spirit, and the Direwolf token.
Is Direwolf token a beast or
interesting concept? Is Direwolf token a beast or animal? I'm pretty sure it's an animal.
No, it's a beast.
Is it a beast?
Okay. A beast.
Maybe we'll see it in here if I scroll through really quick. Direwolf. Direwolf is it is a beast with no pride. Yeah, so it's a 2/1 tamer beast wolf.
That makes that a little bit better than
Direwolf actually cannot be played in main deck. Someone mentioned that in chat.
Yeah.
Cannot be played in main deck. It's supposed to say token on it, but they printed it wrong.
Yep.
I had that exact same question when I first saw it.
If this was a main deck card, this card would have been like a 6 out of 5.
I was worried for squirrels.
It's a really unfortunate card to have that misprint too.
Because it's so good.
it's actually like a legitimately solid card.
Dude, if that was a card and a common, holy, that would be one of. I think that'd be one of the more expensive common foils in the game.
But when I saw it, I asked the same question. I was like, "Oh, this can be played in the main deck," and then, "Oh, it actually can't."
Yep, sadly. All right, well, we got 8 more minutes before we get to our spoilers. So let's talk about Diao Chan Idol Corsage. This is a big text one. So on enter, choose any amount of non-champion objects and put a wither counter on each of them. Whenever a non-token object on an opponent controls is destroyed, you may banish it. If you do, that player summons a flower bud token. So there's a couple things involved with this. So I will get to a card that talks about wither counters. I think Frostnip Puree does. But basically, you give a functional counter to an object, and then at the beginning of that controller's main phase, they can pay 1 for each wither counter on the object to not have to sacrifice it. If you don't pay, then you sacrifice it. If you pay, you remove the counter. I'm pretty sure how it works.
Yes, I believe you're correct.
That sounds right.
And then the flower bud tokens are just I think it's just a token.
Rather than one.
Yeah, they don't technically do anything. They are Fantasias, so it helps.
You have to interact with other things.
Yes. Well, we will get to the flower buds. We should probably get to the flower buds now, actually, if we're going to review this card properly.
Okay.
It's rough.
We scroll up.
Like I said, it's like 5 spoilers in one. So more or less what the flower buds are a Fantasia.
I think it's just these 4, right? There's just 4?
Yeah, I think it's just 4. They're Fantasias you summon for your opponent, more or less, and then you will play cards that will activate them, that will bloom into certain flowers for your opponent, and they're all effects that benefit you. So your opponent will have them, like, they'll have an effect where, at the beginning of their recollection phase, they need to banish 2 cards from the top of their deck.
Yeah.
Or they deal 1 damage to themselves. Stuff like that. So it's beneficial for you, for your opponent to have the flower buds. But it's all just like really slow attrition.
Yeah. Which kind of really fits in with the like enchanter archetype being a true like negate focused control deck. Being able to kind of outlast your opponent and kill them through attrition methods is more effective than people might give it credit for. So we have Flood Bloom, which is at the beginning of your recollection, banish the top 2 cards of your deck. We have Lycoria, which is at the beginning of your recollection, deal 1 unpreventable damage to your champion. We have Nightshade. At the beginning of your recollection phase, put a wither counter on target non-champion, non-token object you control. And then we have Baihua, which is at the beginning of your recollection phase, each opponent recovers 1. And then here's the flower bud token. It's literally just a very pretty looking token.
Yeah, it's just a blank.
It's a nice looking token.
But as you can see from those cards, it's like very slow attrition, very things that like slightly benefit you that over the course of a game as a control deck will end up winning you the game.
Yeah.
But
the big
interesting one.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, I think it's an interesting one. I think we'll need to see a little bit more cards to see the full power of this right now, because we'll need to see more ways of getting flower bud tokens onto your opponent more than just our level 1. I know I've seen some of them, but I'm thinking specifically in some matchups, like against something like Rai, they're not going to have a lot of objects you can put these counters on, so then you might only end up with just a few of the flower bud tokens, and I think you can kind of struggle a little bit. So I'm interested to see where this will go with a couple more spoilers. But yeah, I think it could be very interesting.
Yeah, so
I agree.
Overall, I feel like thematically, the playstyle of this deck and this level 3 champion, I think might be the coolest thing in the game. And I say that with a heavy heart because I think Exia is the coolest thing in the game. This is very, very interactive and very thought-provoking, which is what makes it more interesting to me than Exia, whereas I find Exia is more number crunching and like hard calculations.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited. I think this deck is going to require an alternate win condition other than just your flower bud tokens, just because, like Bright said, if your opponent doesn't end up putting non-champion objects on the board, all of a sudden you're going to have a problem where you're not actually able to win the game.
Hey, he said an alternate win condition. Let me go find the card that's an alternate win condition.
But did we get one already?
Yeah, right here. So Lubu, Indomitable Titan. A 4-cost unique ally warrior human, Terra. On attack, if this is Lubu's first attack this turn, you may pay 2. If you do, wake up Lubu. Diao Chan bonus. If your champion would die with exactly 32 damage counters, which is thematic to the Three Kingdoms lore, banish them, transform Lubu, and destroy all other objects you control instead. This is a 4/4 unique ally. It is 4/4/4, 4 representing the number as death in a lot of Asian languages and lore. And then you would turn it over to Lubu Wrath Incarnate, which is a level 4 champion. Exia is a warrior human with vigor. Other champions get -3 levels, and all allies get -3 attack, or -3 power, sorry. On ally kill, deal X unpreventable damage to each other champion, where X is the killed ally's power stat plus its life stat. This is an 8/32.
This is also the first level 4 champion.
Champion level 4, kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
I'm gonna say right now, I think Lubu is a 0.
Yeah, I think Lubu is also a 0.
Lubu is a 0. She's just there for the lore.
I think there are going to be games where if somehow you manage to flip, you're still going to lose.
Well, I don't know about that. I think if you manage to flip a Lubu, you're probably gonna win the game, I think.
So here's my argument to why I think you're still losing the game. One, your opponent knows Lubu is on the field.
True.
So they have to, 1, kill you without killing Lubu. 2, manage to do the math where killing you exactly is relevant. Or killing you exactly 32 is better than not killing you at 32. So your opponent's going to be in a good spot anyway. And 3, once you transform, you lose all of your elements except Norn.
And Exia.
And Exia, I suppose. I think there are going to be a lot of situations where you still lose because your opponent's just in too commanding of a position.
Yeah, I think that could be true if it's like a Sylvie with a huge board or something like that, and they storm slammed you without counting or something. I don't know. But 32, you get basically restart your life too, so you just restart at 32.
I think the only reason this card isn't just a raw 0 actually is because you can play it without attempting to use the Diao Chan bonus on the card. So with the way Diao Chan's setup works, is you're basically going to have a lot of Fantasias, and most of them will have reservable on it. Meaning having like 5 cards in hand, or like an influence of 7, essentially, like an overall influence of 7, being able to pay 4 for Lubu, and then being able to attack on declaration, pay 2 more to wake her up again. I think it's actually kind of realistic to play that. I do think the card itself will resolve. I don't think the card is going to win you the game. It's not like it. I don't think it's as oppressive as things like a Ghost of Pendragon, or anything in that kind of realm. But I think if you only play this card for the Indomitable Titan Exia side, it's still like a 3. I think if your goal is to play it for Wrath Incarnate, this card is a 0.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like if you're in a control archetype too, this is not necessarily the ally you want to be playing as like your one ally. And I don't think this really fits in Slimes or Sylvie either. I'm not sure she has a home where her effects are actually all that relevant. I think if she was like a norm, or even like, I don't know,
if this was a norm card, it would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
this might be one of the best norm cards in the game if it was a norm card though, because it would be Taunt Vigor 4 cost 4/4. So on first turn you just slap it on the field.
I think the Terra element is just too holding it back.
Yeah, which is weird because we have 3 Terra champions, but none of them really want to play.
This card is very much just like lore. I think it's way more lore based than it is like practical. We can probably use it at some point, and it's probably good in fun formats or like just playing for fun. Don't think you're going to see it being super competitive. But before we go any further with ratings, it is the spoiler time.
It is midnight time. Midnight time. It is spoiler time.
Time to remove the spoilers. Goodbye, Sylvie GG. We'll miss you. All right, guys. In chat, I'd like you to try to guess what our first spoiler would be. Or just any of the spoilers. Just guess the effect, guess what the card is, whatever you want. You saw the thumbnail to the video. Obviously, you guys are very excited about an Exia slime. I don't know if we have an Exia Slime. I might have just photo enhanced something in the corner of a card and made it look really good.
Angry Slime. I think that one wins.
So, Bright, before I showed you the spoilers, we had you on the pod. I asked if you wanted to join us for the podcast because you are a big part of Serene Balance Productions at this point. What did you think the spoilers were going to be? Like, what were your initial thoughts there?
I had no idea. I was a little surprised we didn't get the arcane ones for Andy, but they could have been anything. I am very happy with the ones we did get, though.
I'm a big agree. I'm happy we got these.
So we talked about a couple things. So Lubu is a level 4 champion, right? And what benefits do a level 4 champion get in this game? Anyone? You guys got an answer for me? What would your first thought be when I say, "Oh, there's a level 4 champion now"?
Fireball.
Fireball for 5? No, we're gonna
a whole nother damage, dude.
It is a whole nother damage, and you get more life. But to me, that reads we will finally be able to utilize Pride 4 as a mechanic. So here you guys go. This is the Wrathful Slime. It is a 4-cost Exia ally Tamer Beast Slime, Pride 4, with a class bonus on enter for every 5 damage counters on your champion. Put a buff counter on Wrathful Slime. As long as Wrathful Slime has 6 or more buff counters on it, it has immortality. This is a 1/1. What do you guys think? Let's start with Andy.
So, first impression is it looks really cool.
It's very cute.
I love the red. I love the idea that we're just going to keep getting more slimes as we get more elements. You know, this it's one of the last ones. I love it. I love it. I love the theme. I love everything about it. Pride 4 is tough. Pride 4 is tough. Pride 4 is tough.
Is it tough, Andy?
I think it's tough. I think it's tough to do. You know, it's one of those things where I wish immortality on allies was better, funny enough. And I think you can probably get to that 6 buff counters on the slime. But I feel like once you get the 6 buff counters on the slime, you might already be dead.
So even if you have something like, like Forest Cakes, for example, it's very hard to resolve getting the effect of having, 6 or more buff counters, right? Realistically, if you're, I don't know, let's say 15 damage counters on Sylvie, you Dungeon Guide to Sylvie 3, you pay 2 to activate Wrathful Slime, it goes to a 3/3. You need 4 Forest Cakes or like Slime's Blessings or Verdant Scepter activations to get this to its 6 buff counter setup. Obviously, there may be more things in the future that can kind of set this up faster. Like, we do have cards that directly apply buff counters. We have things like Feed Nourishment. I believe Lead with Force or Invective Instruction. One of those two will give buff counters as well. It's kind of a neat concept because an immortal ally with like a Covenant of Thorns attached to it, there's only specific outs to it, but it's just such a niche card that I don't know if it's actually going to see a lot of play.
The way I see this card being played is one specific setting, and that would be against decks that don't have interaction with Regalia. And I think what you would do is you'd get yourself to 15 damage counters on Sylvie 2, bring out Quicksilver Grail with Thorns underneath it, then play this with a Cake, and then activate your Quicksilver Grail to get an invincible Thorn target. But that only really works if your opponent can't interact with Regalia or Dream Fairy. But I think that would be the way to play this, as like just an alternative way to just like not die to like burn or something like that. Burn might be able to kill you too fast, but at least gives you a fighting chance, I think. Other than that, I think this card is more just adorable.
I kind of see it working in fire cool. best, right? Like against fire more than anything else, because like water has a lot of answers to like removal answers, as well as like ways to deal with Regalia, and kind of wind also kind of does.
Every color, every element kind of does.
Because at best you can Spurn to Ash, Meltdown.
Yeah, and like Fire Sanders were running Spurn to Ash for a while too, so I think they even have an answer.
I think most people have swapped to like, I guess it's a meta kind of thing, but like most people have swapped to Reduce to Ash since they want to target things like Safeguard Amulet and Terraforming more.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those cards where, in theory, it's really, really, really cool. And it might just catch some people off balance, catch people unprepared, where you can just play this card and win the game on the spot. But I think the moment like this becomes a card that people even could like slightly expect, it becomes unusable.
All right, let's give it a rating. Brytwing, I want to hear yours first.
5 out of 5 for the art. It's adorable. I love the theme of it too. It very much screams Exia, and I love the little crying slime in the top left. It's just so cute. But usefulness wise, I think it's got to go maybe a 2, just because it could possibly be a sideboard thing. But for right now, I don't see this getting played in pretty much any of the decks.
Andy?
I think 2 as well. I think there could be situations where you understand what your opponent's playing, see, or like in like a day 2 of an event or something where it's open deck list, and you see your opponent just has no answer to this, and you just side it in and win the game. So, I mean, even if it's just like a 1-of slot, I could see it possibly being worthwhile, but I don't think it's going to be main board. I don't think it's going to be like meta defining or anything.
I like the idea of it. I think thematically it fits Exia super well, right? It kind of goes on this immortality concept, as well as having like being a stronger kind of ally overall. But my biggest problem with this is 4 cost. So like you playing it on the, because you're gonna want to resolve this on your Sylvie level 3 turn, and that's just kind of difficult. So I guess I probably also said it too. It's like maybe a 1-of. Could win you the game if you have it in the right deck.
All right, what we got next?
All right. The next spoiler we have is a card that I think every Exia player in the world has been begging for. I'm sure anybody can guess it after I say that. This card might be the most important card in Exia. And I'm just going to give it to you because I can't wait any longer. So we have Blood Shroud Temper. This is a 2-cost Exia action warrior spell. It is a fast spell, and it says target weapon gains Omni Shroud until end of turn. An object with Omni Shroud can't be targeted by activations, materializations, or triggers. Basically, like an Omni negate, like it's a full protection, right? And then if you have damage counters 20+, put 2 durability counters on that weapon. That part's a little less relevant, but Omni Shroud on weapon at fast speed is pretty nuts. Thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, this card is anybody's Regalia loving deck's favorite thing, and I'm most excited about the keyword versus the actual card. But I mean, this card basically is that keyword. But I think that's awesome. I mean, I love playing Diana, and I would love an Omni Shroud card in Diana. So Jin players are, super happy to see this card. You won't run this as like a 4-of. You probably only run it as like a 2 or 3-of. But being able to stop the stupid green slime as well as fracturize and all that stuff, I think it's really, really awesome to see.
Like, I think I echo the responses of both of you, where I'm more excited for the keyword than actually the card itself, because the keyword is so cool, so interesting. I felt like it was a matter of time until we got it, and it's going to be such a powerful keyword going forward. Hopefully we will see this on more cards to help us win more control archetypes, more generic stuff against the generic removal they're adding in. But for Exia itself, a lot of your game plan requires on your weapon being alive and having an answer to it. And like you said once, the 2 durability counters are probably not going to be relevant all that often. Here and there maybe, but the Omni Shroud itself being protected from anything, especially on your kill turns, is going to be invaluable.
Yeah, so looking at that, I'm obviously, keyword fantastic. The second portion of this card actually makes me think a lot, like kind of an extrapolation of what might come in HVN in terms of Exia support. It says put 2 ability, 20 damage 20+, put 2 durability counters on that weapon. It makes me wonder if we're going to get a card that interacts with weapon durability similar to the way that like Dispersion does, but in Exia.
That'd be interesting.
Didn't we just get a card that interacted with like a spell type of a card that puts durability counters on weapons? Like whatever refurbishes?
Yeah, it's a craft related thing. It uses the
craft.
Why was
subtype.
this craft?
Oh, true. Why wasn't this craft?
True. I don't really know. I don't know. I mean, I'm interested in seeing what comes from this. This card kind of speaks for itself, right? This card is fantastic, even if it's not, target any Regalia or target any Exia Regalia against Omni Shroud. This is like a really strong step in the right direction for allowing a card to be fantastic, right? Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, the introduction of this keyword is just awesome.
I'm really honored to be able to introduce Omni Shroud with you guys to the greater community because it's such a cool keyword and it's what we always wanted Spell Shroud to be.
I'm so excited for Jimmy Lee. That's really what I'm a huge Exia lover. I fold about my Exia decks. I love playing Exia. But Jimmy Lee actually plays Exia at competitive events, and for him, I'm really excited to see how Exia support comes forward. This is a 5 out of 5. I think the art's great too. It's thematic towards what the card is called, and I think it's just really cool.
Yeah, 5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, art's great. 5 out of 5. Playability, probably like a 3 or 4.
It's like I think it's a 2 of in main board and then maybe a 2 of in sideboard as well, because like you said, Andy, right? Your weapon tends to be a very significant part of your kill condition in Exia. So it kind of feels like a provoke obstinance to me, whereas like in Neos, it being like a tier 3 deck, you need the provoke obstinance in certain matchups or you just lose, right? Whereas I think Blood Shroud Temper kind of feels the same way.
Are you ready for this last card? I think the last card I'm most excited for by like a mile.
Yeah. So this was the card that at first I thought was the best card that we got to spoil, hands down. And then we got to talking. We sat in our little group chat and we kind of we did some funking. We figured out ways to interact with the next card that could change the way it initially reads and initially works. And I think the next card is actually more important than Blood Shroud Temper in Exia.
I agree.
I also agree.
So I know a lot of people are thinking it's
cool.
like some sort of Lubu related thing because obviously in the thumbnail she's blurred, but you can still see her there. I'm actually excited to announce, guys, this is the Red Horse. Or we're no, I'm just kidding. We're not spoiling the Red Horse. I wish we were, but Silidar gave us the coolest card. But here you guys go. Here is the ultra rare Exia card for HVN, Abyssal Heaven, Annihilation. I'll let that sit in for a second.
Baby.
This card has really powerful aura. And not even in like the meme way people use the word aura. This card actually, I look at this and I'm like, that's a cool card. And then I read the card and it's even cooler. So Annihilation is a 3-cost Exia card. Action, warrior, skill. Damage 35 plus. This card has fast activation. Otherwise, it is a default slow activation. And the class bonus on this says, deal up to 7 damage to your champion. Destroy all non-champion objects with a reserve cost equal to the amount of damage dealt to your champion this way. That's crazy.
Whoa. One word. Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa.
Someone said it in chat. Poem said, I love everything about this card. 100%.
I love everything about this card before I realized what you can actually do with this card. So it doesn't hit Regalia. That's the first thing to note. I think that would be maybe a little too OP.
A little crazy.
So Regalia is not interacted with. Champions are not interacted with. And it does it deals to everything. So your side and the opponent's side. But because it says deal up to damage, and then it says destroy equal to the amount of damage, it has to be a specific number. It has to be a specific number. So my first thought was, okay, deal 1 damage to myself, destroy all of Diao Chan's flowers.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Huge. That's huge.
It seems pretty good in that regard. And then we got to thinking. We got to thinking about how damage works in this game. So
We cooked a little.
the wording says deal up to 7 damage to your champion, and then destroy equal to the amount of damage dealt to your champion. So this means that damage has to be dealt to your champion. So any replacement effects that remove that don't count. So things like Seize Fate means that you do not deal damage to your champion. So it doesn't work with this. However, that also means that you can deal more than 7 damage to your champion.
Sure.
So when we're looking at things like Goja's Seiryu, the Azure Dragon, it has a reserve cost of 10 when you flip it over, and it becomes a Shenju Beast, right? So if I just Proof of Life and Annihilation for 5, I'll deal 10 damage to myself, and I can destroy the Shenju Dragon. And I think that is... it's niche, but it's pretty cool that you can actually go past 7 if you want.
Yeah, all the way up to 14.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those where, because of how the card is worded and how the game is designed, where it rewards you for being creative. So where, yeah, if you need to pop like a Majestic Spirit or something, and this is like you feel your only way, there are ways to enable this to kill things with more than 7 reserve cost. Like, pretty easily considering what Jin already plays.
This also enables other things. So taking damage or dealing damage to yourself is kind of done in like set specific intervals with cards like Enrage. You have Berserker's Plate dealing 3 to you at the beginning of your recollection, and then on enter for Shuangji is 5. Annihilation gives you a variable amount of damage that you can take. So it's actually not too unrealistic to get to the 35 damage counters for fast activation. Let's say pre-recollection, you take 3 from your plate, but you also activated you also materialized your Shuangji. So you're taking 8. You can go from 30 to 38 in this case. In your recollection, if you don't have a cleave, you can just fast activate this, destroy their interceptors and taunters.
Yeah, what I think this card does really well is it clears the deck space. Was that, sorry, Andy?
I said Majestic Spear is a memory cost. I'm a dingus.
Oh, yeah. Majestic Spear stays forever. But I think this card paves the way for deck space, because you don't necessarily have to run cleaves and what is it, an outburst, relentless outburst, whatever, the one that does spell damage as much anymore. You can make a way for other things, because this will clear the board of those pesky allies. If they just go double library, which shield may pass, and you're sitting like, okay, I only got 1 smoke bomb, what do? I think this helps clear that way, where you don't have to necessarily have your deck cluttered with a bunch of XC cards that can't necessarily play early on. I think it's just kind of a neat place that you can kind of sort of build your deck around a little bit more.
I also think 3 cost is very reasonable on this card. A lot of people are like, oh, Exia, advanced element cards is so expensive. Like, how do we resolve this? Berserker Plate resolves, draw a card. On enter, Shuangji resolves, draw a card. You now have 2 more cards in your hand before your recollection and draw phase. Like, Exia is actually one of the elements that allows you to draw a lot of cards really fast once you hit level 3. And the burst potential from that, having a fast activation on this at damage 35, I think is very reasonable. If the damage was any lower, this card would be insanely broken. And if it was higher, I think it would be too hard to use the fast activation. It would be only a main phase activation, which would make the card mid. Like 35 is a very reasonable number, because it's basically saying if you were to die this turn with your Berserker Plate out, you can fast activate this now. It's not too unrealistic to get the combo off, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's unrealistic at all. Yeah, like you guys said, it's just in my head, this feels a lot like an Excalibur to me, where against like allies or things with a reserve cost, you can do a lot of target removal. But I think while obviously you cannot kill anything with memory costs, regalia and such, being able to 2-for-1, 3-for-1, 4-for-1 plus is incredibly powerful within itself and can easily turn the tide of the game in terms of card advantage.
I think one of the biggest things you'll see Annihilation used for is actually killing fractals.
Yeah,
I think it's
agree.
really good for killing people's fractals. Like Annihilation for 2, you break Fractal of Rains. Annihilation for 3, Fractal of Polar Depths. I think Fractal of Intrusion also 3. And then we have a lot more fractals coming into the game, right? A lot of fractals will be relevant things for Diao Chan as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we ever see domains pop up, this kills domains as well. So you can just
yeah.
completely shut down domain Tony just in one card.
Oh, I mean, this card, like, just Domain Tony. Poor Domain Tony against Annihilation.
Catching strays.
It's buy all the token ones. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, the only exception for saying, like, it's only main deck cards is if you have transform cards. So if you have the, like, Fate Stones, which start out as, like, memory costs, when they flip over, they do have reserve costs on them. So, like, say Ryu the Azure Dragon, like I gave as the initial example, does have a reserve cost of 10. So if you Proof of Life, take 5, and then deal 10 to yourself, Annihilation can destroy that. So, like, it is possible. Overall, in the Exia archetype, I think Annihilation is an absolutely necessary card in your deck. I genuinely think this card for Exia is a 5. I think for overall gameplay, when you look at it and compare to everything else in the game, it's like a 3.5 to a 4 to me.
Yeah, I'll give this card a 4 out of 5. I think it's good, and I think it's going to go in a lot of Exia decks, but yeah, I think it's a fair amount.
I think I'm going to overshoot. I think I'm actually going to give it a 5.
Whoa.
I think the one I'm going to go higher on, because I think this card is going to be so ubiquitous in all Exia decks going forward for Jin. And against the new control archetype, being able to kill all the flower buds in one shot, or kill all herbs in one shot, kill all tokens in one shot, I think makes this card could single-handedly make Jin a playable archetype.
Also, for the people who are saying deal up to means you can deal 0, 0 is not damage dealt, so you cannot. Sadly. But yeah, so as a small side note, why did they print a card that says destroy Poro's deck, win game? This is actually the Kill Tony deck. Like, straight up, this is the Kill Tony deck.
Are herbs 0? Is that why people said 0? I thought herbs were 1.
I think herbs are 1.
Or herbs are 1.
Can anyone tell me right now the reserve cost of herbs?
It kills squirrels no matter what. It's so sad. Poor squirrels.
Dude, squirrels will live the Annihilation because they're cute. That's why. Yeah, I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed the spoilers we had. I am so thankful to Silidar for giving us the Exia spoilers. He knows how much I love the element. Being able to talk about cards that have more interaction than kind of what's immediately out there is something that I think we as a whole at Serene Balance Productions really value, because we can talk about more things in the game, gives us a chance to kind of yap and have a good time. So, I mean, let us know what you guys think. I think these spoilers are really cool, and I'm really excited to see how they're going to fit into my decks.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really thankful for Weebs and Silidar being able to give us these, and really good spoilers, by the way, too. I'm glad we got them. Very impactful. And just shout out to Weebs, and anyone watching, please like and subscribe. It supports the channel, helps us do more spoilers and stuff, and helps us make more Grand Archive content.
We also
Thanks for having me on.
We also do streams almost every Thursday. We try to stream the Yeti webcam weekly, which will either be run or casted by me plus others, and then Andy and Bright will TO for that. So if you guys have the chance to, make sure to check out the server below. It's in the description. Yeah, I'm excited. Do you guys want to go through the rest of the spoiler review now?
You can.
It's gonna be a while. I don't know how long you guys have, but it's gonna be a while.
I got nowhere to be.
I'm on the Pacific Coast. It's only 10.
Okay, do it. Bring it back. All right. Well, but before we go into the rest of the spoilers, I want to ask chat what they think. I want to have a chance to like interact a little bit with the chat here. Do you guys think those cards are good? Do you think they're cool? Do you foresee yourself maybe playing Exia more because you see more support for it? I'm just curious what people got in their minds, because we sit in Discords every day and the spoilers come out and people are like, this card sucks ass. This card is the best. I love feet. You know, people just say the darndest things. People say the darndest things. I'm curious what you guys are thinking when it comes to these cards, basically. Also, good night to everyone who's going to bed, especially the East Coasters for staying up late for us, and I guess anyone else who's staying up late. The spoilers page on the beta site is so much cleaner. Can you publish it so I can look at it right now? Please.
Noel says it's hype to play Jin with Exia slime. I support that decision. 100%.
Jin with Exia slime. How do I get a level? How do I get a level counter on Jin?
I don't know. We can do the new flip over champion.
Do I just play Jin with like a Flame Lash Subduer or something? I guess that kind of works. I really hope that Exia becomes real. I'm really worried that even with all the new cards, Exia might not be competitive enough. Like Exia can always, like any deck. I always say this: any deck can win a Store Champs, depending where you are. Right? Any deck can win a regionals depending where you are, but not any deck can top 8 in Ascent. And I know Kilidus got 9th at Toronto, but I worry that that's the closest Jin will get with Exia.
Yeah, that was what, like 3 Ascents ago too.
Yeah, that was a while ago. That was like 4 months ago. It was a little more than 4 months ago. It was 4.5 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just more like with the archetypes I think we're going to see come out from this set, I think the game is going to slow down quite a bit, which makes Annihilation significantly more important than it might have been before if it was faster. And just because of that, I think Annihilation is a more important of a card than people might give it credit for, just on first glance, thinking of the past format we've had. But, these are all spoilers. We all could be wrong. The Annihilation might just be unplayable. Who knows? But I have a feeling Annihilation, especially if Exia is real, is going to be a card that's just like in every deck and like a 2 or a 3 of.
Yeah, dude, he was so close. Kilidus could have taken it, man. I was praying. I saw him playing Exia, and then Shinja asked me to interview him after one of his wins, and I was like, this is the greatest moment of my life. I get to interview the guy who plays the deck that I want to learn.
I love seeing unique decks hit Ascent super well. It's like, nice. Did it on X deck. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I hope there's a way to actually play Exia Slime and Jin, but I feel like it's not a thing. Because it's class bonus tamer for the buff counters. But like, what are you going to give 6 buff counters to your Exia Slime as a warrior?
Maybe they just want to play because it's cute.
That's true.
It's not all about winning once.
Oh, my bad. My bad. I'll just 0-3 drop every event from now on, guys.
That's what I do.
Okay, Mr. I almost made nets. Or almost made worlds.
Oh, all right.
Okay, let's get through these. Let's go left to right here. So, you guys want to just take turns reading them? Because I realize I've been just yapping a lot.
Yeah, I'll start. So, Fractal Refreshment. It's a 3-cost water Fantasia. It's a Cleric Fractal, has reservable. And on enter, you may reveal up to 3 water element cards from your memory and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. And draw that many cards into your memory.
Fractal Orb of Regret-ish?
Brytwing, tell us your initial thoughts on it.
My initial thoughts are this is a 1 of 5 card. It's a nice little filler. I don't know. I don't see the value in this one too much. You're just you have to put down water cards, so it's like not like you can filter out any advanced elements or anything like that. And then it just doesn't do a whole lot. It is reversible, which is nice in Fantasia, but I feel like we just have so many fractals that are just better.
once.
I also think this card is a 1 out of 5 because it doesn't synergize with having more fractals. So if you activate other fractals for their reservable to pay for this, you're not using its on enter effect, at which point it's a 3-cost water fractal that does nothing besides being reservable, which is, I mean, I might as well just play Fractal of Rain Not Imbued at that point, right? Or like the Fractal of Insight is better, or even Fractal, like the Fractal of Mana would be better. I don't know. This card's weird. Because it doesn't help you from getting milled out or anything like that, and I feel like you don't really care about putting the cards back to the bottom of your deck. You'd probably rather just have cards that go into your graveyard, and then you can just draw from that if there's other effects.
Mm-hmm. So my initial reaction to this card is, oh, it's a decent filter, you know. Put, like, let's say you need to find counter spells or something, you put 3 under, you basically get to draw 3, you try and find more counter spells. But I think you pointed out a good thing where, you know, Brytwing did, where you can't actually filter your advanced element cards, which are probably the cards you want to filter early in the game. And I think this probably requires you to play a decent amount of water cards to actually get good use out of it. Because let's say you're playing this in, you know, your control cleric deck, the new one. How many negate water cards are you really playing? Or how many water cards that would be in your memory besides like fractals you really want to get rid of to try to find things? And I think that's where the issue with this card comes in, where I think a lot of the time, yeah, you might filter 1 or 2. But I think if you have water cards in your memory already, they're probably the ones you want there, and there's not many ones that you truly are trying to find. So I think I'm gonna give it. It doesn't feel like a 1 to me, because I think there's situations where you probably play like 1 of these in your deck just so you can dig later in the game if you have a bunch of fractals in your hand that you really don't want. So I'm gonna give it a 2. But I think I might be overestimating, even with the spiel I just did, how useful this card might actually be.
All right, Brightwing, you're up next.
Yeah.
We'll go in this order.
Unstable Fractal. It's a 2-cost Fantasia Cleric Fractal. It's hindered, reservable, and then class bonus, and pay 3 and tap it. It's sacrifice Unstable Fractal. Destroy as a spell. Destroy target item with memory cost 0 or reserve cost 5 or less.
Ooh.
I actually kind of like this card as generic interaction with Regalia, as well as 5 costs with things like other Fantasias. Finally seeing some generic Fantasia hate. I hate that it's hindered. I think that makes this a lot weaker than it definitely could be. I think it might be too strong if it wasn't, though, so I kind of understand why they put that there. But I think it's okay. I'd probably give it somewhere around like a 2 or 3. It's decent, but not gonna see a ton of play, I'm thinking.
I think I want to give this a 3 because it feels like a good sideboard card. Kind of like how people are using Mystic Purifier right now. This kind of has a similar concept. The only difference that I find between these two things is that Unstable Fractal coming in hindered means that it's not like an uninteractable thing. Because like a lot of the time you'll play something and it's like, there's no real way to get around this unless you have multiple options for it, right? So like when people materialize Polaris instead of fast activating or activating it in their main phase, so Unstable Fractal is a good concept. I do like that it goes up to reserve cost of 5 instead of 4. Because the effect is expensive, you can use the Fractal itself to pay for it, so it's not as bad. Actually, you can't because you have to rest it and then sacrifice.
And you also lose the
I'm changing
reservable
it
that
down
way too. So
I'm going down.
Eventually goes -1.
I'm going down to
Yeah.
a 2. This card is it's an option, but it's a very expensive option for what you want it to do, and it's also only for clerics.
This is my turn. Sorry.
Yeah, what you got?
I like this card a lot, actually. I think in a deck where you're playing a bunch of Fantasias, like especially in like a pretty good amount, having a card like this is going to be very strong. And I think it's going to be strong just because, like, let's say you're like an incredible control deck, like we expect the deck to be. While it doesn't hit that many things, it can hit things like Polaris, which can be relevant. It can hit like Nullifying Mirror. It can hit a Quicksilver Grail. It can hit. I think the big one is going to be it can hit Viridian Trinket, which is going to be a lot of decks big protection against you. You can hit stuff like that to where I think it is going to be relevant enough to where if you're playing a bunch of fractals already, it's good enough to be playing this in like a 2 or a 3 of, because it's going to be relevant a lot. There's one more.
I want to make one correction to something we said earlier with this card. I don't think you can actually hit Fantasias because it says items. And Fantasias are not items. Yeah.
Didn't read
this card is a 1 out of 5. It's a 1 out of 5.
That bumped it down a lot for me.
But you can hit like Poison Dagger. I think there's enough things that actually come out of the material deck that are relevant to enough archetypes where it's probably actually good enough to hit. Like you can hit like Prima Materia, which isn't like huge, but like if you're playing this, which I think as your deck you're going to be playing it as a fractal most of the time anyway, and I think your fractals are most important as fractals. I would be surprised if this wasn't like a 2 or a 3 in your main deck regardless, just because it makes decks that actually play those regalias that I just mentioned that need to come down. It makes them have to play around this card every time. So I'm actually going to give this card a 4.
At minimum,
all right.
Even if it doesn't get main deck, like it is a very good sideboard option with how many things you talked about. Because it is scary, right? Because you see an unstable fractal out, and then you have to plan around it differently. Like you either have to figure out a way to remove it, or you have to play around the fact that you're probably going to lose one of your items. Yeah, I agree with you.
Won't stop printing. They just won't stop printing temporal spectrometer hate.
That's a crazy comp. It's not wrong though. It's not wrong at all, because like this card would destroy a temporal. Like if you saw someone play temporal spectrometer, you'd 100% activate your unstable fractal to break it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think just like having it as a threat out is strong enough. Yeah. Because like I kind of mentioned, like I mean this card might be just good enough because if you're playing blue control, being able to hit Viridian Trinket is strong enough, especially at fast speed.
True, because it is an activated ability.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, let's move on from that. I think I definitely think you're a lot more right when you kind of add more context to it. I can see it being more of a 4 out of 5. The next card is Eventide Lure. This is a 2-cost water Fantasia, cleric spell. It is not reservable, so it is a non-reservable Fantasia, but it says on enter, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may reveal a Fantasia card from them and put it into your memory. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. This is almost like Blissful Calling, except instead of adding it to your hand, you add it to memory. But I think it's really, really key and integral in its archetype.
Yeah.
I think imagine if this card was reservable.
Yeah. No. I think this card is insane. I think if you're running a Fantasia deck, a deck that focuses around the Fantasia game plan, I think you just easily slot this in as a 4 of. It's kind of crazy to me. It's just, it searches for what you need. It stays on board for the Fantasia count. I think this card's insane. 5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah. I think if you're playing like a good amount of Fantasias in your deck, drawing a card with a Fantasia is more or less it being reservable, even if in this case it's reservable entering hindered. But being able to like search and actually like draw a card with it is pretty strong, especially when you just like need more Fantasias. Yeah, I think if you're I would have to do the math of what your breakpoints are to actually for this card to be like hit most of the time. Because if you miss, it's like really bad. But yeah, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 5. If you're playing like 20 Fantasias, which I think your deck probably is, I think this card is like a 4 of every time.
Yeah, true. All right, Andy, hit us with the next one. This one's kind of crazy.
All right, I know how to pronounce this card. Acquiescing Rejection.
Pretty good.
So this is a 4-cost water Cleric spell reaction. It does have the class bonus where it costs 1 less to activate if you're a cleric. And it has the ability to negate target card activation you don't control unless its controller has you draw 2 cards. Banish the card that has an activation negated this way. I think this is going to be, especially during spoiler season, one of the more polarizing cards. Where I think there are going to be a good amount of people saying 1 and a good amount of people saying 5.
Yeah. I think people who are saying 1 is probably, cost is too high. People who are saying 5 are negate or draw 2 cards is pretty much always good.
And to me, this kind of screams as like a win more card. Like you're already up if you're spending, the extra cards on a more expensive negate, and then you're just not guaranteed to negate the card, just possibly drawing 2, which could, it could be like if somebody is playing down an Icebound Slam or something. It's like, it doesn't. It's I don't know. It's not the best negate to me. There's like other negates that are just better or more guaranteed. I should say, but to me, it just kind of feels like a win more card.
I like this card a lot, specifically because it is a spell reaction, which means that Diao Chan can activate this for 4 glimmer counters if it's in your memory on your opponent's turn. So overall, I think that I do think this card is a 5. I think Andy is perfectly right. It's going to split the room. Brytwing doesn't think it's as good. I think it's fantastic. My argument for why it's fantastic is because when you look at card value, this card either negates another activation and banishes it for 1 card used, which is essentially neutral, or you gain a card, or you draw 2 cards and you expend this card, so you go +1. So you're either going card neutral with a banishment on something that the opponent cannot just pay a memory cost for, like Frostbind and Cerulean Decree, or they give you a +1, which is, I feel like, an extremely effective way to utilize your glimmer counters and accrue more value in a game. So the reason I want to say it's a 5 is because I think this is an absolute must card in water, Diao Chan specifically. But I'm also willing to say it's a 4 because overall it's probably not as good in other decks.
I love that we have the split. I love that.
Oh, Glimmer doesn't use the printed cost? I thought Glimmer used the printed cost. Oh. Did I misread that?
I'm not going to tell you. I guess
it's just pay it for
one way or the other.
Nah, I'd have to get more into it.
But I do like that one of you said 5 and one of you, right? Did you say 1?
I didn't give it a rating, but I'd say it's like a 1 or 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So I personally think this card is bad. I think this card is really bad. I usually in card games, when there's a card that gives your opponent an option.
Oh yeah, you hate options. You hate opponent options.
There was I think there's been like 1 card in, like, I can remember in my 20 plus years of playing card games, that was an option that your opponent got to choose that was actually good. And that was only because it was like a magic burn card, where it was either I get to draw 2 burn cards or I deal burn damage. Where this, Arkin Black mentions it in the comments, where your opponent is always going to choose the option that's least useful to you. So if it's a card that's like really, really important, like an Icebound Slam, they're just going to let you draw the 2 cards because it's resolving anyway. But if it's a card like they really, really don't care about, it was more bait, they're just going to let it go. The situation where I can see this card actually being pretty good is just because Diao Chan can, if you like leave cards in your hand and you activate this from your memory, you can see what they do, and you can draw your 2 cards, and then you can possibly just counter another spell out of your memory. So Diao Chan might be the one weird situation where I think this card could actually be good, just because that it's so rough. I'm going to stick with my gut and say this card's really bad.
That's fair.
But I can see it just because you have the ability to activate cards for what is essentially free. Literally, as I'm talking about it, I'm like, okay, maybe this card's actually just like really good.
learning
Literally, as
lear-
I'm talking about it. That's why it's gonna be so polarizing. Because like I could see in practice this card being really bad, and I could also see in practice this card being really, really good. Just because you can activate a second counter spell or a negate spell at all times.
Yeah.
I literally went from like this card is a 1 once as being stupid to as I'm talking through it more. It's not that I haven't talked through this card before with someone else, but this card might be like a 5.
Andy is the polarizing opinion that he's talking about. It's actually so
I'm
funny.
the polarizing. I know what I'm talking about because I'm the opinion.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, definitely a polarizing card.
I will say, in any other deck, but the one we're talking about, I think this card is awful. I think
that's fair. That's very fair.
If Diao Chan doesn't have the ability she does, I think this card is like a 1 every time.
Yeah.
But because she is what she is, I think in that specific archetype, it might be a 5.
That's kind of one of the neat things when it comes to talking about a lot of these spoilers is, as a whole, I think a lot of cards in HVN aren't going to be good like generic cards. But a lot of the cards are going to be like, if you play this exact thing, this card is you must play this card. Which is kind of neat.
Yeah. Yeah, and the interesting thing is, like why I'm flip-flopping is, like, usually with cards like this, your opponent has more information than they do in this situation, just because they know if you can negate it again. Because you can allow this to resolve, draw your 2 cards, and then still negate the card that they chose. Or still negate the card that they played. Yeah, this card's great. This card's great. It's a 5.
That's
we made a believer.
That right there is going to be the intro to the video. Is Andy going, you know what? This card's a 5. That's great. that's like the perfect moment is when it changes so much, right? You can talk about the game and so many things can be different. I want to talk about how Fractal of Refreshment is an SR.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Because that's really strange to me because I think this card is awful.
I think it's Recollection, right? Or is it just a...
Oh, it is a Recollection SR, but
yeah.
I mean, still, I guess I don't understand, like, rarity printing in Recollections or in like, starter decks.
I can kind of see why. Like, it's a Fractal that says draw 3 on it. I think it would be hard to print it at anything less than at least a rare.
That's fair. Michael's opinion is so funny. I can't wait for 5 minutes from now when Andy goes back to saying it's dog shit.
And I swear, I like talked through this with someone. Like, I've already like thought about this card a bunch, and just like as I'm reading more, as I'm thinking more, like, yeah, it's actually like probably one of the good option cards that like I've seen in card games, just simply because you can double negate.
Yeah. So also, I misunderstood how Diao Chan's worked. Apparently, it's not strictly the printed cost; it's the adjusted cost based on card text or effects. So, acquiescing rejection as Diao Chan would be 5 glimmer counters if they have a Viridian trinket, or 3 counters without it. So it's actually a little bit easier than I thought.
I think the key word in the text, or the key phrase in the text, is pay its reserved cost by removing that many glimmer counters.
Makes sense.
So it's basically your glimmer counters are memory.
I see. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, let's move on. Brytwing, you want to hit us with the next one?
Yeah, so Frostnip Pirouette, 4 cost, action, cleric spell reaction. It's a Diao Chan bonus of -2. Choose any amount of non-champion objects and put a wither counter on each of them. And then flame text for that.
We talked about wither counters.
Yeah, I think this could be pretty good, especially like I was saying before, where it's like if you're we need more cards that put the wither counters on things. And I think this could be pretty good. They still need to have a lot of objects on the field in order, to get this one to be a bit more useful. But I think just having another way to get those wither counters on is decent. So I'd say this is probably going to be a 3 or 4 in this deck specifically. You can also play this from the memory as well with the Diao Chan level 1. So I think this could be pretty good. I like this one.
Andy?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Bright there. Again, strictly the ability to use this from memory is ups this card by at least a number for me. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add on that. I think the card's pretty good.
Yeah, being able to play this like pre-recollection as they go into their main phase, give them the wither counters and force them to like play around that is kind of nice. I think on top of that, you can use this on your own objects too, which is pretty cool to me, which is why I'm more inclined to give it a 4 than a 3.
Interesting. So real quick, Chicken Flu asks, have you guys talked about how you feel about wither counters yet? You mentioned what they do, but not what you think about the mechanic.
I think wither counters are fucking sick. Excuse my language. I think they're absolutely awesome in the game. Having a functional counter is a very cool mechanic, and having a functional counter that activates at the beginning of your main phase is something that creates a lot more complex interaction in the game, and it's something that I'm for. Perspective from a caster, I love having more things to talk about while the game's going on. So being able to talk about wither counter interactions, or if they should activate wither counters because it could set up XYZ lines, is something that I think is really, really big.
Yeah, I think they're really cool too. Very unique. The only thing I'm slightly worried about is what they'll look like for decks that don't play a lot of non-champion objects. Like I mentioned, like Rai could easily play the game without having any non-champion objects. So like, does that completely counter the deck, or will we have other options? I think like Pirouette is nice because like once said, you could put it on your own stuff, so you can kind of play around that a little bit more. But I think as a mechanic, it's really cool and really unique. I can't think of a single thing that it kind of mimics in another game, and I think it's just a super cool mechanic.
Yeah, people are mentioning you don't get buds from your own cards dying. It's only when opponent objects do.
I believe there are cards that interact with the number of wither counters on the entire field, though.
I believe there are as well.
Like Season's End, I'm pretty sure does.
Yeah, I think
scroll up
still
and see
mentioned
at
that
some
somewhere
point.
in that stream.
But yeah, I do love it that it's a very unique mechanic that I feel like I haven't seen in a game before. And anytime a card game can do that, especially with the storied history of card games as a whole, I'm a really big fan of. There might be some smaller card games I don't recognize the mechanic from that this has been, but it's something I've played card games for 25 years now, and it's a very functionally unique thing to me, and I'm very excited about that. Yeah, as a mechanic as a whole, the strength of it is very interesting because it gets better depending on how wide your opponent's board is. Like, this card is not going to be extremely good against an opponent's board that has one ally on the field, just because that extra one gives while it still can be like good, it might not be great, and it might not be good enough for you to waste a card on. It might just be more important to have that. But as your opponent, gets 3-4 allies, even just being able to kill one of them with this, I think is incredibly strong. I like wither counters as a whole, but it is a little annoying that it's just another option card for your opponent. But at some point, it gets so overwhelming that it's not really an option card. It's what's the lesser of two evils. That was a really roundabout way of me saying I really like the mechanic, but I think it's interesting that the mechanic probably isn't always good.
Right?
That's
Thoughts?
all I got from that.
Yeah, I agree.
So you like wither counters overall?
Yeah, I think it's a cool mechanic. I think it's just going to be interesting on some matchups. I think it'll be a bad mechanic. On some matchups, I think it'll be good. And I think that's kind of the point of unique mechanics in the game. And I think it's neat.
Yeah, good. Okay,
Yep.
Let's move on. Frostlorn Caress. This is a 5-cost water action cleric spell reaction. Diao Chan bonus is 3 less to activate, which makes it a 2-cost. Put 4 wither counters on target non-champion object fast. I think this one's actually quite a bit more impactful than the other ones that say like put a wither counter on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is basically targeted removal because it's put in 4, so they're going to have to pay 4, and sometimes they just simply cannot. So it's kind of just like almost saying destroy a target champion object in a way. And I think this is a pretty neat card. And then the same cost as the pirouette as well. So like one versus wide, one versus tall kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I also I really love how they've crafted this recollection deck to where I like just looking at it, I feel like the recollection deck is like good enough to play. Like you said, like one is going tall, one is going wide. Just the fact that you have those options in the recollection deck itself, I think is going to be a really good introduction for players that are familiar with the game already, but want a more advanced deck without spending a ton of money.
Yeah, perfect for that. When it comes to the recollection, I think thematically it's very. I really like the way that the recollection decks work, especially knowing you have 4 of every card. Makes it an immediately playable product. But looking back at Frostthorn Caress, the thing that I think is most important, not just about this card, but about the concept of all these cards that apply wither counters, is they're all fast, and they're also all spell reactions. So being able to play this in your opponent's like materialize, like in response to materialization or in their recollection, I think is actually quite impactful. But you also have the option to like use it in their end step and force them to recalculate things, right? I just love the concept of how Diao Chan's glimmer counters work. I'm never going to get over that fact. I think it's really, really good. I give Frostthorn Caress probably a 4. I think it's really hard to use in other decks because it is a Diao Chan bonus specifically. I'm almost willing to give it a 5.
I think this is just like not playable.
Yeah, like in other decks, this is a 0.
Yeah.
In Diao Chan, I think it's a 4, maybe a 5.
Yeah, I could see a universe where we start playing with these cards and like all the cards with wither counters just end up like not being very good. I can see a universe where that is the case. Just because again, it's like an optional thing.
All right, let's move on. Next one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 3.
All right, Andy, bring us home. This one.
All right. Hairpin of Transience. It's a 0 cost water regale item with a cleric class bonus to banish it, but 3 wither counters on target non-champion object.
That's pretty good.
Very good.
I mean, it's just targeted potential removal.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty good, and I think the more wither counter stuff you play, the better each of your wither counter actions are. So I could see this card being very good.
Like if you play 1 or 2 things that have wither counters, it's kind of weak. When you start adding them, I feel like they gain exponential value. Like there's a threshold where you put enough wither counters on things, and like the board is dead, and you are destroying everything. Or sacrificing.
Yeah, like a double Frostnip pirouette. It's like it's more or less a board clear, except like the 1 or 2 things your opponent wants to keep, and then like their turn's over.
Hairpin of Transience plus like a Frostnip pirouette, or Hairpin plus like Frostlorn is pretty good as well. I mean, you could potentially put 7 wither counters on a single object.
Yeah, absolutely, you could. Is that worth materialization? I'm not 100% sure, but I think the card in the vacuum is fairly good.
I also really like that wither counters can interact with a lot of things that things in the game struggle to. So like a fracturized lantern, for example, is something you can interact with via a wither counters. It just says non-champion object, which makes it very like omnipresent.
That's a very good point.
I think that's a really good point.
All right, Brytwing next.
Alrighty, I think this is Dissuading Hope. I don't know, I can't read that word. It's a 2-cost action cleric reaction spell. Target unit gets -3 attack until the end of the turn. It's class bonus floating memory. I love everything about this card except for the class bonus floating memory. If this was unlocked, it'd be great. But I think it's actually pretty good. Just a nice little stall card that still gives you floating memory. If you're still on like a cleric mill list, I think this could be still pretty good too. You can hit it that way. Nothing super crazy, just kind of a nice little floating memory 2-cost fast, like we've seen quite a bit.
It's like a 3. I
Yeah,
feel like it's
like
a 3. It's like good-ish when you need it.
2, 3. Playable, not crazy.
Yeah, it's playable, not crazy. I'm right there with you.
Very, very average. All right, move on. So we skipped the Flower Bud because we already did that one. And we will go over here to Redirect Flow. I believe this was a main deck spoiler, right? No. Was it? No, Dan got fire cards. Who did water cards for Redirect Flow? I can't remember. Oh no, this was on the TM32 stream. That we saw Redirect because it's a recollection card. Yeah, it's a recollection card. The Redirect Flow is a 4-cost water action cleric spell reaction, class bonus -2, and you may choose new targets for target trigger. Now I assume this is fast because it would make no sense if it was slow. I think this card is very interesting. Being able to choose new targets for target triggers, in theory, sounds like a fantastic thing, but I'm not quite sure if in practice it is actually that good.
Yeah, I think
Do
this
you
is.
have on the top of your
like
on the top of your head a trigger that's relevant to redirect?
Does Mystic Purifier target? I'm thinking like maybe Mystic Purifier, Dream Fairy. Dream Fairy targets for sure.
The problem with Mystic Purifier is having another legal target for you to change.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it's as good, is because
I think this card
redirect the
target
target.
A lot of judge calls.
Yeah, to redirect the target, it needs to be a legal target as well, right? Which is difficult.
Yeah, Dream Fairy is the only thing that can come to mind. But then, like, what does Diao Chan have that you want to redirect a Dream Fairy to? I don't know.
I mean, like the best thing you want to redirect is like Storm Slime, right?
Yeah.
As a spell, target champion.
Yeah, I guess the little defensive thing. Yeah, that's fair.
Fireball,
I would
maybe?
have to think about more triggers that are relevant before I
Fireball's not a trigger.
Oh, it's not a trigger either. Yeah. Only target triggers, not just
it's
things.
It's like one of those cards where you have to. It's meta dependent. You kind of have to see what's out there trigger wise. Right now, I can't. I don't know. I don't have all of the triggers in my head to make it good enough or bad enough. But from what I can think of off the top of my head, it's okay.
Card feels like at least the sideboard all-star, where I think in the matchups where it is good, it's going to be extremely good.
Fracturize is probably one of the best targets.
I don't think Fracturize is a trigger.
Oh, it's not a trigger. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. I'm on this wake up at 6 shit.
I thought it was any spell or anything.
Yeah.
Or any action.
Redirect target trigger. What triggers do we want to deal with?
Yeah, I would have to think about it more, but I do think what it's good against is probably incredible against.
Yeah.
Yeah? Ace Protector?
Ace Protector.
I guess,
force them to bring their Ace back to hand after they play it.
It's like killing the squirrel. Now you're gonna bounce yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's not great.
Arkella said raccoon. That's actually a decent one.
Scavenging raccoon.
Yeah, that's probably the most relevant one. Fair.
But yeah, I against like slimes and stuff, redirecting Storm Slime is like almost good enough for me to give it like a 5. But I think I'm gonna give it a 4 because I think this is gonna be sitting in your sideboard most of the time.
Yeah, I can't properly rate it yet, so I'm gonna go with a 3 since it's the middle.
Yeah, I gotta think about it. I gotta go through. I recommend everyone go through and look at every trigger in Grand Archive that has ever existed.
This card is gonna get a million judge calls, like Bright said.
Because
people are gonna do it to illegal targets. No, Merlin 2 is choose.
No, 3 level counter.
I don't think it targets. It just says draw a card.
Yeah.
It's not target champion gets a counter. No, probably not then.
Let me tell you about this next card.
Yeah.
This next card is pretty good.
Yeah.
So, all right. Shimmering Refraction. It's going to be a 2-cost normal spell reaction cleric card. Fast. And it says deal X damage to target unit, where X is the amount of Phantasias you control. It has the Diao Chan bonus, where if Shimmering Refraction was active, from your memory to draw a card into your memory.
pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
Card's
this is
insane to me.
clearly meant to be activated from your memory and replace itself, which I think is a removal card that replaces itself, or just as a cantrip in a matchup that doesn't have a lot of allies. This card's great. This card's a 5 out of 5 for me. This is a
I
4
also
of
kind of
that
see
deck.
this as like a kind of a fireball for the deck too, in a way. Like you could easily get
Yeah.
6 counters, and then you're just like, hey, take all this damage, it all replaces itself. Good luck. This card's crazy to me.
I think even outside Diao Chan, it's actually not bad in a couple specific decks. If you play like a very fractal focused deck, you can actually find kill lines between Shimmering Refraction, Refracting Missile, and Burst Asunder. Like you actually have ways to kill people with just fractals now.
With fractals.
Fractals and 3 kill spells is kind of crazy to me. And it's inexpensive too. It's only 2 cost.
I could definitely see Diao Chan just being pure control with a whole bunch of fractals. And then you just win by dealing damage by this and Refracting Missile and the one that blows up all your fractals.
Yeah, Burst Asunder.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that.
Deal 2 damage and then sacrifice any amount of fractals. Deal 2 damage for every fractal sacrificed.
Yeah, and this pairs really well with that card that searches the fractals too, because it just counts for the count. That's also why that card's crazy. So I think if you're playing a fractal deck, those 2 cards immediately for conclusion.
Pretty good.
Absolutely.
All right,
the only
unanimous,
downside is
it's
the
the
one are
best.
reactions.
Yeah.
True.
All right, Chil to the Bone. It's a 2-cost water action, cleric spell reaction. Target attacking ally gets -2/-2 until end of turn. If you control 2 or more Phantasias, that ally gets -4/-4 until end of turn. Kind of good. I mean, there's a lot of things people play right now that are 1 or 2 life, stat lines. I think that a 2-cost fast removal that Diao Chan can also play from memory is pretty good. And it can go up to 4 too. It's even better. And realistically, you're going to have 2 fractals every game, right? You start with like Fragmented Spirit of Water, and then you'll have a fractal, and then you just play 1 fractal, and suddenly you can Chil the Bone removal for 4 on turn 1.
Yeah, one of the really good things about this card too is it's a 2-cost. So you can activate it before you get to level 2 and start replenishing your counters. You can activate from your memory. So in like an aggro matchup, I think this card is something where you kill something with an actual spell in your hand, and then you can cast this at level 1. I think it's pretty solid.
The first thing that comes to mind on this card is Frostborn Paladin. It's just super easy to answer to Frostborn Paladin, and I think that there's not a lot of that. Sometimes it feels like there's not a lot of answers to Frostborn besides swinging in 2 allies, and this just takes care of that. I think it's a very good card.
I think the only reason I'm not going to give it a 5 is because it says target attacking ally.
Yes, very true.
Yeah, does nerf it a little bit,
but it's still really good. Still really good. All right, let's go up.
All right,
Air cards
next.
All right, that's me. Bloom, Summer's Glow. It's a 2-cost action cleric spell, class bonus. Each opponent sacrifice all flower buds. For each flower bud sacrificed this way, the controller summons your choice of either Lycria or a Booyah token. And then an element bonus, pay 2, discard this card from your hand, and power 2, draw a card.
So Lycoria is 1 damage at the beginning of your recollection.
1 damage.
And then Baihua is the recover 1.
And I think this card is probably the one. I don't remember what the other 2 flowers do, but I think this one has the best flower with the deal 1 damage, because it kind of just could put a clock on your opponent. So I think this card's pretty good to get that activated. And then the cycle is kind of nice, because if you're just kind of not able to find what you need, you can just cycle through. So I think it's pretty decent. Wouldn't say it's crazy or anything like that, but it's nice.
The other ones are banish the top 2 cards of your deck, and something about wither counters, I think. Beginning of recollection phase, put a wither counter on target non-champion, non-token object you control. So basically you can't target your flowers. So it gives your opponent the choice of what they want to wither on their own side. I think this card is a very good example of what makes a card good for being an advanced element. So cards that cycle and cards that are neutral, I think, are really, really good because you get the effect of it. I really like that this can be played in other decks as just a cycle card with Empower, which means it can be used in Kongming as well. Because you only need Terra bonus, right? So you, as Kongming, you can pay 2, discard it from your hand, Empower 2, draw a card. And that's, to me, that's pretty good. It's a card neutral, Empower 2, pay 2. I don't know. Hard to say. I think it's absolutely necessary in Diao Chan because you want to play all the flower buds. You need to like be able to utilize the flower buds in the game. Thoughts, Andy?
I'm unsure. I think you're gonna probably switch between the ones that summon Nightshades and Floodblooms and this one, depending on your matchup, sideboard in, sideboard out. I'm gonna give it I think with this deck, I think a lot of the time you're gonna win the game without the flower buds. I could see you building this deck and just completely ignoring the flower buds in general.
Just playing full wither counters, basically.
That's kind of what I see too. It's like control, make them forced to kill things.
Yeah, I think there's two, because I think you almost are getting, at least with what we have spoiled, you're getting kind of sucked into the Fractal package, just because that is good against everything. It doesn't require your opponents to have cards on the field. It doesn't require, it's something your opponent can't necessarily play around. Where if your win condition is all flower buds, your opponent can more or less play around that and it'll slow your win condition pretty badly, depending on what they're playing, obviously. But I'm probably going to give this and the one where that's coming up, which is Bloom Winter's Chil, a 3, just because I think they're interchangeable. And if you're playing like a few in your main, you're probably playing the same amount in your side of the other one.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
All right, let's move on to Season's End. So this was shown as this is the CSR that you can pull from the Recollection decks, and I believe it is unique to the Recollection decks for that reason. It is a 10-cost Terra card called Season's End, an action cleric spell. It is not a reaction. Diao Chan bonus, this card costs 1 less to activate for each wither counter on objects on the field. So not each wither counter on the field, each wither counter on objects on the field. Mm-hmm. Is there a difference between that, or am I misreading this?
I think
don't think
like one object has.
I think it's counting the number of winter counters in total.
Oh, I thought it was counting the objects in total.
Hold on, let me read it again. This card costs 1 less to activate for each winter counter on objects. I think if it was that way, it would say objects with wither counters on the field.
So it's just total number of wither counters.
I think it's just total number of winter counters. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But that's how I'm reading it. Just because I think if it was
yeah, no, I think it would be it'd be too awful if it was worded the other way. Basically, it says destroy each object with a wither counter on it. Destroy anything with a wither counter on it. Yeah, 10 wither counters. It's free. Destroy everything that has a wither counter on it. It counts number of wither counters. Thank you, Chica. Appreciate you.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. It definitely kind of leans into that game plan a little bit. It all really depends to me on how easy it is to get to, 10 wither counters, or even really like 7 or 8 or something like that to make it more reasonably costed. It being slow kind of is a little bit rough, but also just I don't know. It's an interesting one for sure, but I think it could see some play. I don't think you run this as a 4 of, but I can see this being like a 2 of in the decks that run the wither counters.
I agree with you completely. You said exactly what I wanted to say.
Not much else to it. It's kind of straightforward in that regard. Let's move on to the next
looks
one.
Gorgeous.
It does. It does look really nice. All right, let's move on to the next one. We're like 20% the way through this. I don't think we're finishing this whole thing today, guys. I'll tell you that right now.
We're just doing the recollection deck.
But maybe next week we can bring you back another one on Tuesday.
True.
Absolutely.
All right. The next one.
Let's finish the tarot cards.
Okay. We'll go through the rest of the Diao Chan recollection and then stop there. And then we'll bring it back for another podcast if you guys like it. All right, who's next?
All right, is it my
I think it's you, Andy.
Is it me? Oh, Andy.
I think we're on Shriveling Vines, right?
Yep.
So Shriveling Vines is a 5-cost Terra Fantasia Cleric root spell. Has a class bonus where it costs 2 less to activate. And at the beginning of your end step, put 2 wither counters on target non-champion, non-token object you don't control. I think this card is very interesting. It's another Fantasia. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. But it's interesting. It's because it's just like constant 2 wither counters. I think it's very interesting in like a control deck. But as a Terra Elements card, if you don't get like 2 of these in play, I could see it just like not being amazing. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts.
Well, you
I
go
don't think
first,
this
Brett.
card's crazy or anything like that. I think it's one of those ones that it's only really good if there's some object on the field that is terrifying that you have time to kill, and you just keep loading the wither counters on it specifically. Something like maybe Majestic Spirit or something along those lines. Otherwise, I don't think it's super crazy to just put 2 wither counters on random object, especially for a 3-cost. So I think it's just an okay card. I don't think it's super crazy or anything, but I think it's at least fair, and you probably play some of them. I do love the art on this one, though. It's very
Art is
very
really
pretty.
nice.
Good art. Very good art.
I think this card is a win harder card. I think that if
I
you
agree, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
if you play this card, you are probably already going to win the game, and you're just securing the victory. If you play this and you're at a position where you might lose the game within a turn or two, because of how much it costs, I don't think you're going to get enough value from it within that first turn to really slow down your opponent in a significant way. I want to think it's really good because I like the concept of like having targeted, like I want to say removal, but it's more like targeted like control. You're forcing them to choose destroy or pay, right? You're taxing them in a sense. However, I think just the fact that it costs 3 is like a little bit too much for an advanced element card. But if you made it 2, the card might be like too good because you could just play 2 of them realistically. And then it becomes really oppressive, like you said, right? If you can resolve 2 of them, it's probably pretty good. If you're just trying to resolve 1 of them, either it's not going to do enough or you've already won the game anyways. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, one thing I think is going to be very make or break with this card is that we will absolutely will not know this until we actually get a chance to look at the cards in our hands, build the decks, and play. But how many extra cards do you have to actually like play within your hand? Because like if you're getting to like level 3 and you're like consistently having like 7-8 cards in your hand, I could see this card actually being pretty good just because it's something to play that does have an impact. But if you're getting to like level 3 and you have 4 cards in your hand, 5 cards in your hand, this is very rarely going to be the card you actually want to play for your turn.
Okay, one more point to make. This card is actually slightly better than I think it is. And the reason for that is because of the level 2 effect of Diao Chan giving you glimmer counters based on the number of glimmer counters you have versus the number of Fantasias you have. So this does actually fit into the archetype of having Fantasias and having glimmer counters. Because you can activate this card for 3 and put cards down in your memory that can be activated using your glimmer counters, which does make it a better card overall. But I still don't think this is going to win you the game. This is the win harder card still for me.
Yeah, it is the Fantasia.
I think there's enough early game Fantasias though that doesn't. I don't think it matters too much in terms of getting more wither counters. I think it's just kind of a win more.
All right, move on. So Andy already talked about Bloom Winter's Chil because it was related to the Summer's Glow. You choose, these 2 flowers or these 2 flowers. But let's go into Blossoming Denial here. So I think this one's you, right?
I think it's me. Yeah, Blossoming Denial. It's a 3-cost action cleric spell reaction. Class bonus: as long as an opponent has 5 or more cards in their memory, this card costs 3 left to activate. Negate up to 1 target card activation unless its controller pays 3. Each opponent summons 2 flower bud tokens, and then level 3+, recover X, where X is the
I think
amount
it's
of
level 5
Fantasians
plus.
on the field. Was it 5+?
Yeah, it is a level
you gotta
5
be
plus.
5+, sorry.
I guess this is where the empower cards for the bloom cards kind of like pair in with this. Interesting.
5 stars for me. 5 stars for me. I think this card's insane.
I think this card's pretty crazy too, yeah.
One, it can possibly be, and I think a lot of the time it is, a 0 cost negate, which is great. It doesn't need to be, but it is. It gives your opponent flower buds, regardless if the negate goes through, which is solid. And recover X, where X is the amount of phase on the field in general, not just on your side of the field. How many flower buds your opponents have, and how many of all that. I think this card's incredibly strong. I think there's going to be a lot of the times this card recovers you like 8 to 10 damage.
I agree. I think this card's gonna be crazy.
I have a question because
You can play it in Sylvie. Sorry, go on.
my understanding of how this works is, I guess I'm trying to figure out how I get level 5 at fast speed because it's a negate. So I can use Bloom's effect to pay 2 and discard at fast speed, right? Because it's an activated ability, not the card activation.
I'm sorry. What?
Okay, so Bloom, Winter's Chill, and Summer's Glow. The card is slow, but the effect on the card, like the activated effect, the second box, I'm pretty sure you can use that at fast speed, right? So that's how I get the level 5 for this.
Yeah, that's correct. You can use that at fast speed because it's not active. It's not like an additional cost.
I see. Okay. So basically, you're using Bloom to activate Blossoming Denial for the level 5 portion, or you're using like Mnemonic Charm.
Level 5 might not come up every time you play this card too, because it's possible that you just need the negate. You know, there's kind of just Astral Seal, because if they already have you know, the cards in memory for it to cost less, they probably don't have that many cards left in hand to pay the 3. But also you can play this from your memory too as well. You know, with the Diao Chan. So I think this card might just be used for the negate, and then if you happen to be level 5 through some means, then you just heal everything. Shroud of Empowerment, maybe it gets around with this. Hard to say.
Mnemonic Charm is pretty standard, I think. Mnemonic Charm
would
work.
I think if you're playing this, you're probably like, you might just want to play Mnemonic Charm in general just for the cantrip, and then the Empower 2 later in the game, just to be able to recover a good amount of. Like, I could see Mnemonic Charm, your Empower, being strictly for this card.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. I guess before we move on, I think this card is really good. I think negates are just really good. And then additional effects to negates make it kind of even better. Even if it is a choose 2, you know, choose, pay 3, or negate. Yeah, I think it's pretty good overall. We have a couple more cards. So we're gonna get into, so we talked about the Nightshade one, which was the Wither counter flower. The last card we're gonna talk about here, and I'm gonna leave this one to Mr. AndyK, the original creator of Serene Balance Production, is the Staff of Blossoming Will. So take it away, Andy, for our last card, guys.
Staff of Blossoming Will is a 1 cost Regalia Terra Cleric Staff, which is on enter, draw a card. And Diao Chan bonus is pay 1 and rest it. Target player summons a flower bud token. Brytwing, give me your thoughts.
Ooh, it's kind of reads like that one Neos card that summons Automaton. It kind of is decent when you're winning, and it's kind of not good otherwise. But
Sentinel Fabricator?
Yeah, Fabricator. But I feel like it's okay. I believe this is one of the few ways to give yourself the flower bud tokens, but I don't know why you would want to do that necessarily. I think it's okay. It's good ramp, especially if you're able to just hold up cards and you're not really playing anything on your turn. You just, you know, pay 1, play this, pass. I feel like it could be pretty good, but it's nothing like crazy in my opinion. Just a solid card. You'd probably put it in your material deck if you're playing your Wither Flower Bud deck, I think. So decent, but not crazy.
I think this card's actually quite good. So 1 cost on enter draw card is a good way to utilize floating in the game. Getting the draw and enter already makes the card decent, in my opinion. I really like the effect on Diao Chan because to me it reads like ingredient pouch. In my recollection, I will pay 1, activate this, and progress my game plan, or I will slow down your game plan. One or the other. And I think that because it only costs 1 reserve to activate it, I think it's actually really good.
Yeah, I think I'm siding with not siding, but I think I agree with Once here, where I think this card is incredibly. I think this card is good. Where, as you said, you're using this to advance your game plan, as putting a card in your memory and having your opponent summon a flower bud token, which I think is solid. Another way I think I would look at this is that it grows the healing of your blossoming denials every single turn. Where just having this card makes it harder for your opponent to dig themselves out of that hole, just because the more turns this is on the field and the more flower buds, not only are you able to, possibly progress your win con faster by giving them Liquorias with the bloom spells, but also there might just be a point where you're countering so many things where after so many turns, if they can't really get it through, you're blossoming denial for 10, 12, 14.
That's crazy.
And that's just enough by itself to win the game.
Yeah, you're the next Luxem deck. Yeah. It's a good point. It's funny because when you said siding, Andy, I thought you meant this was a sideboard card, and my first thought was, huh?
No, I think this is a main board card. I'm going to be interested to see what the material like for this deck looks like, because I could see it getting pretty full pretty fast. I do think this card does have a spot, but I'm going to be very interested to see how the builds end up progressing.
I'm interested to see how this card fits in other elements, because right now we're mainly looking at water Diao Chan, right, where we focus on fractals and negates and their counters. But like this could progress game plan really, really interestingly in fire, I think, actually, where you're able to very easily get a lot of floating in your graveyard. So you can just use this to draw the card, or you can even just like Quicksilver Grail it if you need to. Like to get it going faster.
Baby green slime.
True. Being able to kind of like flicker it and get that, cantrip on enter draw is really nice.
So one more thing I want to go over before we go today is I think every regalia that's going to fit in this deck, especially once you get to level 3, I think you're going to be forced to ask the question, is this strictly better than materializing a Terrasite? Because I have a feeling you're going to be playing Terrasite in this deck, just to be able to get that cantrip and then have a GCR every single turn if you want. I think Sapphire Blossoming absolutely is good enough to where on a turn, if you don't need a negate or you don't need a removal spell, where you're going to put this into play. But I think every other materialization, once you get to level 3, is going to be asking, is this better than just a Grand Crusader's Ring?
Oh man, that's such a good point to bring up. I always forget Terrasite is that good. I played it a lot when I played the starter deck Kongming, and then Terra Kongming wasn't really that good, so I kind of forget that Terrasite exists. But it's a fantastic point. Do I want to materialize something that isn't just draw 1 at any speed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a very good question to end the podcast on. I think a lot of people who do manage to watch all the way to the end, hopefully you guys do enjoy it, like and subscribe, join us for more content in the future. Yeah, because if you're playing like 3 Terrasites in your deck, it's super realistic to hit one. If you play 1 or 2, it's like a turbocharge. You hit it, it's great. But if we're looking at water Diao Chan, we have lots of options for like card filtering. And I don't think it's too unrealistic to have like 2 Terrasites in your deck, and you're going to hit one almost every game if you're playing a very slow control game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And additionally to that, if you make it past turn 12, you are gaining so much infinite value against your opponent.
True.
Because they're not materializing anything else, and you are just materializing a free draw 1 every single turn. which is kind of crazy.
Terrify is a 0. You don't even need to lose the card for it. You're just literally gaining an extra card. It is a Grand Crusader during the moment you get to level 3.
Yep. All right. Well, we had the chance to go through our spoilers, Luxera's map spoilers. We will be sending these spoilers over to Sylvie.gg as well as Proxius Codex, so you guys can see the high quality versions there. But big shout out. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate you two being here for this as well. When Sil messaged me, hey, do you want to do spoilers for SBP? I was like, got to grab 2 of my favorite people, AndyK and Brytwing. So if you guys have anything you want to say to the stream today, as well as for the end of the podcast, let's start with you, Brytwing.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. It's the first time I've ever spoiled cards for an official TCG before, so I'm super happy. When I got DM'd asking if I wanted to spoil cards, it's like, absolutely. So I appreciate you having me on, and thanks everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.
Andy?
Yeah. Do you want to say thank you everyone for being here and watching? It's a real honor to be a member of this community and being chosen to be able to spoil such awesome cards and be able to talk about it on a platform where we had, I think, almost 300 viewers today, and concurrent viewers at one point. But no, I really appreciate everyone being here. If you're interested in playing some webcam, please follow the link in the description and join the Yeti webcam server. We have a tournament this Thursday. We have a tournament next Thursday. We have a tournament Thursday after that, and then we have a case tournament at the end of the month. But thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I really, really do appreciate it. Please like and subscribe too.
We will be streaming this week's weekly. So this Thursday will be streamed. I'll be casting along with Jim the Eternal. He was one of the casters at Ascent Santa Clara. I almost said Seattle, but that hasn't happened yet. Ascent Santa Clara. So we hope you guys can join us there. Again, like Andy said, like, subscribe. It does help us out. All of our socials are below, as well as I just want to give another big thanks to all of you guys for being here. It really means a lot. And if you guys like this podcast, please let us know in the comments as well as in the live chat. I'd like to bring this back and do more of these, maybe every week, maybe every other week. So if you guys are interested, let us know and we'll get back to you soon. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yes.